We're here to talk about the severe weather and emergency shelters that we're opening. We're going to start, so the run of show is Chris Voss, first speaker. He's the Director of Emergency Management for the county, followed by Rachel Pearl, who is the Deputy Director for the Department of County Human Services. They operate the shelters. Chris Gardner is our incredible partner from Do Good Multnomah. He's the Director of Communications and Marketing. And then we have City of Portland folks. Chris Carey, who's the Preparedness
and response
manager for the City of Portland, and Dylan Rivera, who you know well is the PBOT spokesperson. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Voss, Director of Emergency Management. We'll do questions right after.
Great. Thank you for joining us today. Obviously, we're entering a period now where we have met thresholds and the county will open shelters tonight. But this is really just night one of several nights that we're looking at. Tonight, we are prepared to open 3 locations, but we're also prepared to continue to open locations as we need to expand to make sure that we're accommodating people that need to see shelter. The county chair has declared a state of emergency that will start at 6 p.m. tonight. As a result of that declaring an emergency, one of the things that also happens is that TriMet rides for anybody needing to get a shelter, getting to a shelter that does not have the resources to pay for that ride, can do so without charge. We do encourage people to go to our website where you could find additional information and find about our shelters. We also encourage people that are considering or need to get to a location to call 211. You can get the latest information about what's available and potentially where to go. They can also assist people with transportation if need be. It's a time where we also want people to check on their family and friends. If you know people that do not have shelter, now's the time to contact those folks and encourage them to seek shelter and encourage them to call 211 to find out where they can go to potentially stay safe. Our goal is now and continues to be to not turn anybody away when we do reach these days that are the highest risk. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Rachel Pearl, the Deputy Director for the Department of County Human Services, and she'll give you more details about our specific shelters.
Thanks, Chris. As Julie and Chris mentioned, I'm Rachel Pearl, use she, her pronouns. I'm the Deputy Director for the Department of County Human Services. I'll share a little bit about where those 3 locations are tonight and who will be staffing those locations. So we do have this location that is Northwest 14th Street, which will be staffed by Do Good. And we're super grateful to our providers who are helping us out and always lean in these moments. We also have the Hollywood Shelter, which is out on Northeast 43rd, and that will be staffed by TPI. And we also have the Cook Shelter that's out on Stark, and that will be staffed by Cultivate Initiatives. When folks come into shelters, they can expect to be provided with food, water. If they are wet from the elements, they can be provided with warm and dry clothes, and we are able to sort of figure out what their needs are as they spend time in those spaces. We also are training staff throughout the year. So we have facilitated over 50 trainings for both county staff, city staff, and also community volunteers. So if folks are interested in leaning in and becoming a part of these operations, they can find more information at our website, which is multco.us/volunteer-emergency-shelter. As Chris mentioned, if you want more specifics on the addresses for these locations, you can go to our county website, which is multco.us/cold, and also at any time call 211 and they can help provide information for folks as well. So as others have stated, it's really important for us to reiterate that people need to get inside. The elements tonight are going to be very cold and we are concerned, and we want to be here at the most critical days, which is why we're opening today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, thanks. My name is Chris Gardner. I'm the Director of Communications for Do Good Multnomah. I use he, him pronouns. And on the behalf of Do Good Multnomah and this downtown location of the severe weather shelter activation, I want to say that we're ready. We've got food stations and hygiene stations, warm drinks, water, and clothing all ready to go. And most importantly, we have a staff who knows how to be in relationship, because we get to do this work every single day for our city and our county. At this site, there's 120 beds with hundreds more across the county. We opened already for one night last week, and the space was nearly full. Being the location that's closest to downtown, we expect that will happen again during this week. So if we're full or families with children show up, folks under 18, we work with the county to transport folks to other sites and make sure they have what they need. And I also want to make sure that we highlight the dedication of all the staff and the volunteers who step up and say yes to serving our neighbors. It's not easy at Do Good. We've had to team up for the last 2 weeks. We've been poised and on call, and the forecast has changed. So there's been a lot of back and forth as we've worked together with the county as we've all navigated this kind of unpredictable weather system happening in late January and early February. Our team has been poised and ready to go and committed to showing up on top of the regular shelter work because that's what it takes to serve this community and make sure that everyone is safe. So I want to thank them, the Do Good staff, and all the leadership, and everyone who's joined this all hands on deck effort this winter. Let's do this together and help spread the word. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Carey. I'm the Preparedness and Response Manager for the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management. I'm happy to say that the city and county have been working in close partnership to meet the needs of the community. We've joined the county in proactively declaring an emergency to support these operations. The Portland Bureau of Transportation, Portland Parks Bureau, and other public works bureaus stand ready to meet the needs of the oncoming weather. I'm sure Dylan will get into that in a little bit. The city is concurrently recruiting for the sheltering needs of this activation with the county. First responders, including Portland Fire Rescue, remind everyone to take extra precautions on icy walkways and treat all downed power lines as they are live. And then finally, please check on your neighbors. Please keep your sidewalks passable, and if you see someone that needs shelter, please call 211. Thank you.
Hi, Dylan Rivera, he, him pronouns, spokesperson for the Portland Bureau of Transportation, PBOT. At this point, the forecast for late this week is uncertain. The National Weather Service says there's a chance of freezing rain on Thursday that could linger overnight Thursday and into Friday with cold temperatures all day and evening. PBOT is watching the forecasts carefully and using anti-icer on our routes to try to reduce the risk of snow or ice sticking on bridges, hills, and overpasses, especially at areas of high elevation. Depending on the forecast and the conditions we see in real time later this week, we may use road salt as well on our routes. Like most cities our size with similar weather, we do not treat low traffic residential streets. So any snow or ice that does accumulate on those streets will stay there until conditions warm up. Everyone needs to understand that freezing rain is not like snow. It is dangerous. You may lose control of your vehicle. Front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive are less effective on ice than they are on snow. And if you have to travel by vehicle, use traction devices like chains or snow tires, studded tires. In freezing rain, sidewalks become dangerous. In freezing rain, your front steps become dangerous. The path from your front door to your vehicle could be icy and dangerous. You could slip and fall even before you reach your car. So now is the time to get ready to stay indoors in the event of freezing rain. Now is the time to plan ahead for ice melter and a snow shovel to be able to maintain clear passage and make your sidewalk passable for yourself and your neighbors, and to stay indoors in the event of freezing rain. And be mindful in the coming days, monitor the forecasts. Thank you.
So we can go ahead and take some questions and we'll try to repeat them. Blair?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on that. Sorry if you already said it, but why don't you treat those the residential roads?
Why not treat residential roads?
Yep. So our equipment and our budget are enough to treat the main arterial streets, the streets where TriMet buses serve the public and where first responders need routes to reach shelters such as this one or hospitals. You know, we have to focus on those routes in winter weather to help first responders, meaning police, fire, ambulance services, reach those critical destinations. So we're the first responders for the first responders, and our equipment doesn't fit on a lot of narrow residential streets. We're not equipped to get the public to move their vehicles, for example, off of some of these narrow streets to make way. So our policies on this, our snow and ice plan, is very common. I mean, Seattle, Eugene, St. Louis, Missouri, the cities all over the country that have very little snow or ice like we do, and are about our size, have roughly comparable sort of tactics.
Go ahead.
I think it was Chris that mentioned recruiting. I know the staffing is with your partners, but are you still looking to supplement with Multco employees to help staff these shelters? Are you looking for volunteers? How are we doing?
Great question. Asked if we're still recruiting for community members who could volunteer. And I'll have Rachel or Chris take that. Rachel.
Yeah, thank you. So we, during nights where our providers are opening sites, we actually help them if they need additional staffing support. So we do some of that supplemental staffing. And then once we move on into this activation, if we open additional sites, those will be likely run by county and city staff. And if we need some additional support, there will be messaging going out to the community that they have opportunity to sign up as well.
I think a lot of people often are confused why the thresholds to open these shelters differ from county to county. Can someone speak on that?
You bet. Chris Voss is going to talk about why thresholds seem different in different counties.
Great. And yes, there are different thresholds in some of the counties. There are also some similarities. So our thresholds to open shelters are very similar to Washington County. I also want to just note a few other differences. The county, through the Joint Office in their Safe Streets program, also have thresholds that are reached at even higher temperatures where they actually provide gear and support many people experiencing homelessness in a lot of different ways. This is sort of our most stringent threshold where we then reach a point and we start opening locations. But we do recognize, while there are some differences, we're really proud of the program that we've built here. There are 3,000 beds that we have in the county that we serve every day. And even though last night we didn't meet the thresholds, there's actually beds if folks were to call 211, available beds right now. And so we keep track of all those factors. And yes, we do have thresholds, but it's also very much a conversation. So last week we did open one night as well. We didn't quite meet our hard thresholds, but after looking at additional data, we thought it was necessary to protect the community because we received specific information from the health department that said, hey, there may be more to this event than what we see. So we keep our thresholds flexible, and we like to be there, and we know we could be there during those highest risk days, and that continues to be the most important thing for us.
Have there been any talks of just one blanket threshold for all counties, or is it always going to be individualized?
You know what? I don't know, as in these are multiple governments that would ultimately make that decision. But we do communicate across the region as well about when people do meet those thresholds and what they're seeing. I think the difference is also that while we have an event like last January, we might open over 1,300 beds to support the community. I think our neighbors are seeing a much, much lower level of sort of people outreaching to their locations, more in the 100 to 200 range, where we might see things well over 1,000.
Mr. Voss, you said that the cold exposure calls factor into that threshold, that making the call to open these shelters. Do you know how many cold exposures there were last night?
Yes, so it's a great question. So actually 3 numbers that we often look at.
No, last night.
Right, last night. So there's 3 factors. And so we'll often look at ED visits, we'll look at sort of 911 calls, and we'll also look at EMS transport specifically for hypothermia. Okay. And those were within a normal range.
Okay. Can you tell us the number from last night?
They report less than 5, which is, yes, less than 5.
Of each of those?
It was less of 5 for EMS transports. I do know, I don't remember off the top of my head the exact number for 911 calls or ED visits, but they were also close to the normal range. I believe I know the 911 calls were in the normal range. I don't know the exact number for
range
ED
can
visits.
be, it could be up to 5 people suffering on the street so badly that they need transport to the hospital. If that's happening regularly, is that not a crisis of our care system that we're there was a gentleman out here last Wednesday night, right across the street here, who was in great pain. He was dropped off at this shelter by a police officer who thought this shelter was open. It had been open earlier that day till noon, but then it was closed. Have you heard about this?
I don't know of the specific story. First time I'm hearing that a police officer actually dropped someone off.
There was a police officer, you can ask PPB about it, I don't think we have a representative from them here. Police officer who was giving this guy a courtesy ride down to this shelter, thinking that this shelter was open. They didn't know it wasn't open. That man ended up in that alcove right across the street, crying for a long time until people called 211 for him. 211 sent a lift. The Lyft driver declines to pick this passenger up. 211 was called the second time. The second Lyft driver declined to pick this passenger up. Then he was so stiff he couldn't stand up. And he was crying in pain, and a BLS ambulance came and took him to Good Sam. We are seeing that every night outside. And we've been seeing that every night. It's for the past, since we started distributing, doing an enhanced outreach for the Joint Office of Homeless Services, we've been doing it since January 10th, every night. This week has been particularly hard out there, and when you made the call to close this shelter, people took it real hard. They took it as a betrayal. There were 102 people in here one night, and the next night they couldn't get in. If you would come out with us, we're going to get those people here again tonight, and you can meet those people and listen to what they have to say about this whole system. They are feeling very, misled. The night after this closed, it was as cold and wetter than the night this shelter was open. And people were just camped outside wanting to get in. So if you could tell us more specifically about what you do day to day to determine the threshold to open this shelter. I just don't see anybody coming out to survey what's happening with the individuals who are out here who do not have phones to call 911 and have to depend on others to call 911 for them. They have to grab the attention of others and have those people come up to them, and there's a relationship there that you have to have someone believe you that you need 911. There are a lot of people out here who can't even get someone to believe they really need help. We would love to have you come out with us tonight as we get people to this shelter, because we are going to actively be doing that. We invite any county employee to stay up late. We're staying up all day. Once we heard these shelters were open, we decided we're going to stay up and go all night. We're going to do it because we don't know how many shuttles will be out there. Do you know how many shuttles we'll be transporting?
I do know we have a transportation team that will assist 211 as well, but I don't have the exact number, but the primary point is to call 211, and yes, they do often.
Have you called 211 this week?
I have not called 211 this week.
Okay, we've tried several times, and so sometimes it's the state organizing that transport, doing the Lyft dispatching. Sometimes it's the county. Tonight it'll be through the county.
Why don't you've got a couple questions here, so I want to sort of respond because I think they're really important. I know there's more than one.
Three shuttles?
I want to sort of address some of the original questions that you sort of had. And first, I want to start off by saying thank you. As someone that is working with the community to help get people into our locations when they're the most extreme days, I very much appreciate that, and I think we all very much appreciate that. And it's one of the reasons why we're here. So thank you for that work. I do also want to say, with regard to our thresholds, we work really hard over the course of the year to develop these thresholds. We work closely with the health department that is analyzing specific risk data. And about every 2 years, you will see us go through an exhaustive process where we say, is this where we need to be? And the last time we went through this process, you saw us change some of those thresholds with regard to precipitation, where they specifically started to see some additional risk. So even the thresholds that we have today, they're not a static thing. They're a flexible thing that continue to grow over the course of time. I recognize that there is risk year-round to people that are experiencing homelessness. We also recognize there are some days where the risk is very much increased, and that is primarily what this program is about. It is to be here during the highest risk days.
When these thresholds were set by what people have said is the city set the thresholds, then the county took them over. When they were set, was there a fentanyl epidemic in 2016 and 17 to the degree it is out there right now? That's a rhetorical question. There is a very large problem happening, a crisis on our streets that is at a scale that never existed in the Portland I have lived in for the past 15 years. And there are people who are using a very, very powerful opioid that is helping them survive the night. They get a little numb sometimes, they feel better in the cold that way. If we can get them in here, it's less likely that they're going to succumb to that cold as they numb themselves. It's a different situation now out there than it was when these thresholds were set. If you come out and visit with people, meet people who are out there all night, you'll find at 2 a.m., you'll find some people who want to come in here, who didn't know it's open.
And you know what I want to do is, you and I, right after this, you and I are going to have a conversation. I'm happy to do that, because I have some of the specifics and I have some of the questions, but I'm also very interested in sort of your offer, because as someone that has worked these shelters, as someone that's been here overnight on many, many occasions, I do receive information. I think that on-the-ground truth very much does impact us. At the same time, I very much appreciate the fact that there are other people that may have some additional information. So why don't you touch base afterwards?
We really do want to hear from you. Chris is going to meet with you, but I've got other reporters. Yes, if I can. Go ahead.
You'll stay up late, right?
I work every one of these late. Go ahead.
Hi, so
Not from the inside though, from outside. I understand.
I totally-
understanding that you have the inside perspective of how it works in here, but we would really love for you to join us outside. Actually talking to people on the ground.
I absolutely would love to do that.
Okay.
Thank
guys
you.
took the weekend off,
Yep.
I
I spoke
understand,
with Washington
but-
County, some of the folks who are working on.
Oh, sorry, we've got another reporter asking a question. Go ahead.
Sorry, so I spoke to some folks working at a Laurie shelter in Washington County. They told me that they're committed to staying open until Thursday. Are you guys doing day by day? And if so, why are we taking that route?
Yep, that's a great question. Are we going day by day or just announcing a through-on opening? Go ahead.
Great. Yes, we make these decisions day by day. And the reason why we want to do that is because this way we have the most accurate forecast over which we can make decisions. And with that, I think it's also important, there are resources that we want to consider. We want to make sure that we use those resources during the highest risk days. And the forecast is shift. Last week, if folks remember, every day it was supposed to snow and we didn't quite get that snow. And you guys probably remember that time not too long ago where we were expected to get 0.3 inches of snow and then we suddenly got 11 inches of snow. So the on-the-ground conditions are very, very important for us. And so having that latest forecast to make that decision is critical for us to allocate those resources during those highest risk times.
You said there were 200 shelter beds open. You're speaking, I know about when you say 3,000, that sounds like a heck of a lot available. When you say 200 beds, you're speaking about the Salvation Army shelter beds, right?
Correct.
So we've got like 48 safes, right? And what, 140, 150 something, 52 at the Moore Street shelter. The Moore Street shelter, during all of these days when you've been saying that there are 200 beds available, you're speaking about these places where they're the only place that people can go walk in late at night, right? Do you know when they are open until on the normal nights when there isn't a severe emergency?
Sure, but I do very much want my city partner, who's closer to that, to sort of answer that question, and they could probably give the hours. I think he probably knows them, but I can give
Forgive me. So yeah, so apologies, I don't have the details for that, but let's talk right after this and I'll get with the right person to get you that information.
Okay, come to the safe shelter will be letting people walk around in there, what about 5:30? 6 o'clock tonight, just before they open to take a tour. If you want to know how it works for the workers in there, they'll let you know.
Thank
We've
you.
had a lot of issues with women not knowing that they could go there after 7 p.m. And so you find them wandering downtown. They're very grateful to be told they can go in after now, which
Nice.
was new. After they opened, it took a while for that change to come. So a lot of people have been told they can't go there late at night.
But they can.
Now,
They can. So you have a treasure trove of information. There's a
But
group
this
of us going to meet with
You
you.
should have been getting out, honestly. You should have been telling people, when you tell them there are 200 beds available, there's a catch, okay? People have to get themselves 3 miles
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
the road
Yeah.
to Moore Street. Do you know what the facilities are like there? Have you visited them?
So we are going to meet and talk about this. I really do appreciate your information. I think I want to make sure that the media who is here has their questions answered, and then hopefully we can all step aside and hear more directly from you.
Okay,
And
but
you
when
can also
make
talk to
claims
media.
that are false, you really should address those claims. When you're asked about them, you really should address them. You've been saying that 200 beds were available every night through this whole time, so from January, when
I
these 200
think-
beds opened. And you
Okay.
keep saying 3,000 beds. Would you just consider
So
not
what
saying
we
that
do-
as if those beds are open and available and transport is available to them? We have no transport. Lyft drivers are the transport.
Yeah.
Okay, can you address that?
So I think this is some issues that,
It's been issues like this for years in this county. When we call
Okay,
211, it's
okay.
been 3 years of this.
Okay.
Lyft drivers go to pick up an unsheltered
Okay.
person who may be soiled.
So
And
during,
the
yeah.
caller doesn't stick
Doesn't
around.
want to do that. You bet. I totally understand that. We do, in emergencies, have county transport and sometimes city that are actually helping fill that gap. When we're just in enhanced activation, which is again set by the thresholds, we're doing the best we can with a system of 211 that tries to get the transport to. You are bringing things forward that are really important for us to hear.
Do
And
Lyft
at the same
drivers
time,
transport
there
these
is,
people? That is the expectation that when the shuttles aren't running, Lyft drivers, the
Yeah,
rideshare
yeah.
service, do they transport?
so
I mean,
our under.
is it the idea that they are sent to these calls?
Exactly, that they are sent and cabs and other things. So you're bringing us information. There have been beds available every night. As far as the 200, that's something that 211 has been assuring us, that they have discussed transportation
I just
options.
had an hour-long
But what
call
you're
with
hearing,
211, they
and it's
are
not
as
happening.
upset with
Yeah.
the situation as we are.
Yeah.
The Lyft drivers.
Well, it
they-
sounds
they
like-
called, they can only type in a few words
Yeah.
into the
Yeah.
summary.
Yeah.
And they're telling someone who they're going to be picking up.
And-
So that what they knew about this guy is that he had a blue shirt and a walker.
yeah. So again, we appreciate the media being here. We are going to work with you, and you brought forward really important information. And I guess I'm going out with you tonight, which I am more than happy to do. I have worked on these since 2011, every single one. So thanks so much for being here. If nobody has any other
Yeah, I have a
questions?
question. I'm not sure if you've spoken about this yet, but can you address or break down specific cold exposure calls this week? And how many, okay, so you went over.
Yeah, so we'll go,
numbers,
yeah,
how
and we'll
many-
go ahead and share those with you. It's part of our morning call that we report out specifically. And if you say it's less than 5, it's one of the reasons that we can't say whether it's 1 or 2 is because it's personally identifiable. We'll go through all of that with you. There's a public health
There
thing,
were,
so,
on the night this shelter closed, on the night when it wasn't open last Wednesday, it's been open till noon, there, not only was that officer dropping a person off here thinking it was open, but he got approached by another person who was asking for an ambulance. That person ended up leaving because the officer got busy.
with somebody
Because
else.
he was flagged down by someone whose
Yeah,
car was stolen.
yeah, yeah.
But that person ended up going down to the bar 2 blocks down, Cuties, and he had them call for him, and that was a cold exposure call. That
Okay.
was the night. That's 2 cold exposure.
In this
exposure
neighborhood.
calls Within 1 hour, right here on this block,
Yeah.
when this shelter was closed.
Yeah.
These people were coming here
Great-
for this shelter.
great
Understand
information.
This need
Yep,
is every night.
Yep.
And it's not just when it snows or when it's
And
forecast.
we understand that, and that is why the county works as hard as it does on sheltering as many people as we can. So we get you, we're with you in this, and we're trying to manage what has been exactly what you said, which is one of the longest stretches of really cold weather, and trying to do it in a way that we're there for the nights with the highest risk. We believe tonight is that risk.
So it was too expensive to keep these kinds of places running, even with the volunteers? Even though you leased this space and 2 other spaces, the county leased
Yeah,
this space?
we are happy to get into it, but I'm going to end the
Okay,
press
this-
conference right now.
This space is leased by the county
Thank you.
all of these nights.